Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. Thank you guys so much for 200,000 subscribers. Huge milestone. Super excited about that. I remember being a young kid watching videos, always wanting to build a channel and watch the subscriber count grow. This amount of people is just mind-blowing, so we're going to keep going hard every day, improving the content. And today we have one of those cool new things. So we're going to talk about how to create this 3D tracked, interesting looking see-through phone. This is a continuation of the first augmented reality iPhone tutorial video I put out about a week ago. I highly recommend, if you guys are struggling, watch that video first. It'll make everything easier, as well as if you want to add on top of this and add a lot of the 3D graphics, which we're not going to show in this tutorial because we already mentioned it there, then check the link out down below, put it in another tab so you can get the information before you tackle this one. And of course, I also want to mention, again, this is inspired by 𝐏𝐑𝐄𝐈𝐆𝐈𝐄𝐀𝐋. Lots of amazing stuff. I'm going to put his Instagram below. So let's go ahead and get right into it. You're only going to need Adobe After Effects to pull off all our compositing, and you're going to need some sort of 3D software. I'm going to be using Cinema 4D with the Octane renderer. Of course, if you guys only have After Effects, just start within After Effects. So right click, replace with After Effects composition to get started here. So what we're going to do is right click down here in this gray space and go to new, and then create a solid. Make sure it's a black solid, click OK. And now what we can do is we can just hide the visibility of this for now. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to click this pen tool, and I'm just going to create a rough little box. It doesn't have to follow any specific edge around our phone here. I'm going to select the black solid, and again, make sure you're masking on the black solid when you're doing this. Click M on your keyboard to bring up your mask options. And I'm just going to click this little mask path keyframe here at our starting position so that I can start animating. You can also bring that up. So I'll just move a tiny bit, and whenever my phone moves, I'm just going to select this mask and just readjust it. So let's keep going along here until we find where this really starts to move. So right here, we're going to start to tilt. So I'll click on the solid and I'll adjust the mask. We can turn the visibility back on for the black solid. You'll see it'll just go black. You can scroll through again to check. And let's go over to where it says add here. Let's click inverted, just like that. So we can isolate the tracker to only track what's on the phone and not have to waste any computing power trying to track what's in the background. This way our track is going to be a lot more crisp, a lot more solid. So now I'm going to click and select both of these layers. I'm going to right click and I'm going to pre-compose them here, and I'm just going to name this iPhone track. So once these are pre-composed, we can now right click on that pre-comp. We can go to track and stabilize, and we can track the camera. All right, so once your computer has gone through doing that, we can scroll through here and see all of our track points only on the phone, which is perfect. That's what we want. Once you have that, you can actually double click into the pre-comp again, and you can just delete or you can hide this black solid for now. It was only there so that we could isolate just our phone. So now if we go back to our comp that we just created, we click 3D camera tracker here, you'll see our little track points only on our phone. So I'll just kind of choose somewhere in the middle, right click, and I'll click create solid and camera. And now you'll see if I press play, my solid will be stuck to the phone. It should also rotate and tilt with the phone. So that's how you can test what your track is looking like. I'm going to select this solid, and I'm not going to move it, but I am going to extend it. So just so that it just takes up a larger region of the phone. So if you guys remember near the end of the first tutorial where we made the depth illusion part where it looked like there was these rings kind of going into the phone, we're going to borrow that technique to sort of cut out the area where we want to put our customized phone. Let's hide this track solid for now. Just hide the visibility. We're going to find a spot where the phone is facing forward. So right here at the beginning is fine. I'm going to select my original footage here, and I'm going to click Control D to duplicate it. And I'm going to rename this to mask. Now I'm going to select that mask layer. I'm going to right click, go to time, and I'm going to freeze frame it. It'll pop this message up. That's fine. To get rid of that, just select that and just delete the 3D camera tracker off the duplication. So if you scroll through here, you should just have a still image of your front facing camera. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to mask this. So select it, grab your pen tool, and we're just going to go along the edge of the screen here. All right guys, so once you've selected only the screen, you've created this mask around here. If you want, you can hide your bottom footage and just see what that looks like. It should be something along the lines of this. If you guys want, you could even bump up the feather of this. So we'll click M, and we'll just put on like a 3-pixel feather. Now what we want to do here is go to our effects and presets and search for the fill effect. So drop the fill effect onto our mask layer, and it should turn red just like this. We're actually going to want to change the color in our effect controls here from red to black. Now, if we press play, you'll see it just kind of floats away. And the reasoning for this is because we haven't linked it to a track. All we need to do is simply take our parent and link here. You can even grab your pick whip tool and just drag that onto your track solid that we hid earlier. Like that. Next, you want to make this a 3D layer by just checking this little cube switch here, and you'll see we now have a miniature version of our screen. So to fix the miniature version of this, I'm just going to click S on this layer, and I'm just going to scale it up. If for some reason things aren't lined up, you guys can always use your anchor point here. Don't try and move things too much though, to risk having a shaky track. And also, if it's hard to line this up, you can hide the fill. Just click the little FX here. You can move a tiny bit, and we can just lower the opacity or even change the blending mode just to kind of see where to line these up, kind of judge where to place everything so that it's lined up perfectly. So if we press play here, you guys should see, once you properly line that up, that our screen is blacked out completely from the solid. All right, so what we're gonna do now, guys, you see where it says iPhone track, our original footage. You guys can just select your original footage, go over to where it says track matte here, and change that option to alpha inverted matte, and make sure that your mask layer is above that original footage and there's nothing else in between, or else this is not gonna work correctly. So alpha invert matte, the mask layer. And now what I'm gonna do here, you saw my track solid layer was up before. I'm just going to hide that. Control D to duplicate the track solid. So we'll keep one here as our little link and our reference one. This one will just be our tester. So click this, drag this below everything here, and then turn it on. And now you'll see that it's inside of our phone, and you can even make it look like a little bit lower in Z space. If you just select that bottom track layer, grab your Z axis here, and just drag down. So now if we scroll along here, it'll look like this is in a box. Pretty interesting. And if you want a little more help on this, if you're stuck, if it's not working, or if you want to design that look out more, again, watch the very first part. It'll help you a lot more with the process. But that is how we can place things only within our phone screen, so that as you rotate them, you only see it in the phone screen. So you guys may be thinking, like in the first video, right click and you pre-compose any of these track solids. You can replace the track solid with an image, and the image will be in place of the track solid. But if you try and do that, this is what that's going to look like. So as you guys can see here, if you just go on Google Images, try and find some like motherboard image, whenever you rotate it, it's just going to look like it's 2D, because there's nothing really jutting out. You're only just seeing a 2D image projected onto here, and that's not what we want. We need to make this in 3D. And for those of you, again, that are new to 3D, this is not that complicated. It's pretty easy to do. I'm going to show you guys how to do it within Cinema 4D. But if you guys have any other 3D software, maybe something like Blender, and you know some of the basics, you can recreate the steps I'm doing. You can see all these are jutting out. This isn't just 2D image. This will actually look like it's sticking out from the phone. And then we have some cool little interactive parts here. We have some like projected image parts just for this kind of like battery. We have some spinning parts like the graphics card. As you can see, the fans are spinning. We have this little part, and then we have some creative lighting. We have some wires, things like that. What we're going to do, I'm going to go up to File, I'm going to go to Export, and I'm going to go to Maxon Cinema 4D Exporter. And again, use whatever 3D workflow you guys are familiar with, depending on what software you're using. So I'm going to name it, and I'm going to save it in a folder that I can easily get back into. And I'm going to open up Cinema 4D. Now a quick word from our sponsor. If you guys are interested in taking your personal or professional brand to the next level, I highly recommend using Squarespace. I've been using many of their different blogging tools for portfolios, as well as being able to third-party link to different sites. You have the ability to share, customize, and schedule. Being able to use these blogging tools and these sharing tools is a great way to build traction on the internet, so I highly recommend looking into this. Of course, all of the customizable social sharing buttons they have make it super easy to get your content out there on different social media platforms. So if you guys are interested, check out the link in the description. Head on over to Squarespace to start a free trial. Better yet, if you are going to pick up a website or a domain name, I have a 10% off code for you in the description. Just use code MAXNOVAK. So once you're in Cinema 4D here, I'm going to go to File, Open, and we're going to open up that project file that I just saved. So right here, Tutorial. And when you open that up, here is what you are going to see. So we have this 3D little plain image, and it's a little bit ugly. So let's open up this little null here, and you'll see here's our 3D camera tracker straight from After Effects. Let's click off that and then just zoom out. And you guys are going to be able to get a nice view of the actual movement of the camera whenever we shot the clip. So if I press play, you'll see here's the movement. Let's pop off this for now and be very careful when you're working with this layer specifically, because if you try and do something and you're in the camera view, it's going to mess it all up. So anytime you're trying to change something or zoom in or kind of move your camera around without messing things up, always click off of this target. So we'll keep that off for now. Now this plane here, we don't really need this giant reference. I mean, it's nice, but we can actually just select it and it's this layer here. So I'm just going to double click hidden in our render and our editor here. So just make those red or just uncheck it. Now, as for this track solid, this is the track solid which we actually created and placed in Z position. So this track solid here is this. So if we go back into here, so I'm actually going to use this exact track solid and just start building the look based off that. So let's select the track solid here. It's this little object. I'm going to click it, Control C, Control V to paste it, and we're going to hide the original. We're not going to delete it. Just click this check so it's there if we need it. Now on our new little duplicated track solid here, let's just delete the orange so that we're just working with the normal plane. So before we go designing the look, let's test if this track is correct. Again, make sure you're not checked onto your camera when you're doing this. We're going to click and hold on the cube and let's just create a sphere. And now we'll just zoom over, find where that sphere is. Let's just drag that toward our plane. Once we start getting into the nitty-gritty of stuff, I'll move my face cam so that we're not blocking, but let's just make the coordinates of this 5. And in our object, let's also bump up the segments so it's a nice smooth sphere. So let's make the sphere just touch our plane here, kind of going through it a little bit. Now what we're going to do is anytime you want to reference what it looks like in After Effects or what it's going to look like on the phone, this is the steps you take. So you always click the little target on your 3D camera tracker. You can press play and you'll see now it's sticking to the plane. Once you've done that, if you want to see what it looks like in After Effects, you always File, Save, pop back into After Effects, and we're going to just open up the Cinema 4D project file that we were just working out of. Here is the project file again. I named it tutorial right there. So drag the Cinema 4D project file in as a layer into After Effects. That's why I like using Cinema 4D to do this stuff. It just has a nice workflow built in with After Effects. So now you guys can see literally exactly what we're doing, the plane, and you'll see that that sphere is sticking to. And if you even want to see that inside the phone, again, you take this layer and you place it below our mask and our iPhone track, just like that. And you guys can see nice and tidied up inside of the phone. So that's exactly what you're going to do. If the track is messing up at this point, you guys need to rewind and see what you did wrong. But if you're here, perfect. And now we're going to start building our phone screen. So a really awesome tip to get you started with this and to take it from looking like an ugly plane to an actual motherboard chip, whatever you want to call it, is to use this free program right here. This is called JS Placement, and it allows you to create some really awesome stuff just based off randomly created textures. So if you go through here, you can go to JS Classic, you just click, and you guys can change a bunch of these. You can generate a bunch of random looking kind of greeble textures. I like using JS Placement 2 because I think it looks a little bit more tech-like. You guys can go through the different presets here to find something you like. You can experiment with different ones. Big Data, or the Crap Pack. I'm pretty sure that's from Beeple, if you guys are familiar with him on Instagram. I thought there was a little bit too much here, so I just dropped the iterations. You can toggle the colorizer, and that's going to open up all these little options here where you can choose a really interesting starting look of colors for your motherboard. So this is really awesome. What you want to do once you've designed it, you've changed around all your presets, all your scalable things, is you have your options here for saving. First off, you're going to want to click Save Color. This is going to be your basic color, diffuse, texture, if you want to call it. So what I recommend is you right click, you create a folder in some place that you can go back into. So I'll name this Tutorial Motherboard. I'll name this Tutorial Textures. We'll pop into there. So we'll save our color texture. Next, this is very important. You want to save your height. And if you want, you can save the normal here. So we'll just click Save Normal. So once you have saved those 3 images here, you have your color, your height, and your normal map, we can now bring that into Cinema 4D. All right, guys, so once you have created those textures, we're going to go down to Create Shader, and again, I'm going to use Cinema 4D Octane as my renderer for this. It gives me a lot of useful tools for being able to render things out, better looks, better lighting, in my opinion. You can use different third-party renderers. You can use Arnold, you can use Redshift, or you can just use the physical and standard shaders. It's really all up to you. Create Shader C4D Octane material. let's double click into that material. And first off, let's change it from diffuse. Let's make it a glossy material so it's a little more reflective. So here's all of our channels where we can plug in our materials. In diffuse, we're going to go where it says texture, just click these three dots here, and we're going to find the textures we exported from JS placement. Load your color texture into the diffuse. So we'll click open here and we'll click no for this. Next, you want to go over to your normal. You can load in your normal, just click the three dots, load the normal map. And here is the most important step. So first, before we add the displacement, drag that texture onto your plane. So again, anytime you want to zoom in, see what you're doing, always check off your camera. And here's what this looks like. It's literally just an image on a 2D plane. Now double click in here again and go to where it says displacement. We're going to click add displacement, pop into here, and where it says texture here, we're going to click these three dots. Now this is where we load in our height map. So click that. I'm not seeing anything yet, but that's because I need to load up the Octane render view. So I'll click Octane live viewer window, and we'll just kind of snap this over so you guys can see. Fire it up, open this up, click on our displacement, and you see, and now let's just take our amount and start bumping that up. And you guys are literally going to see the parts of this texture extrude, which is really awesome, very useful. And you want to just kind of design that however you would like. I'm actually just going to borrow the texture from my original example and just paste it onto the new one, just because I want to create something as close to the example I showed at the beginning as possible. So we'll just copy that, Control V. We'll use the same exact one we created earlier, and let's fire up Octane. Zoom in here. Now, at this stage, the next thing I recommend you do is you create some sort of edges around this so that it doesn't just look like a floating plane. It looks like it actually has walls that are extruding from the phone, if that makes any sense. And let's file, save this. Now I want to mention here that you're not going to see all the motherboard details on this because we are using that Octane plugin. So keep that in mind. We're just going to see this purple plane instead of our actual motherboard. But if you want to test the frame, you could always just render out a test frame. We'll do that in a little bit. But anyways, when we scroll through here and you see this little gap here, we don't want this gap. We want to have this we want to have these edges here with our texture on it that we created in the original. We're going to pop off our camera. I'm going to create a cube here. So just click, make a cube, and drag that cube over to our track saw. We're going to use that just to kind of make this smaller. We're basically just going to make this the edge of their motherboard. So slide that out. You'll see how this is a little bit tilted. Let's do the same. Let's grab our rotation tool and just try and match the tilt to that. All right, so there's one edge, and to copy the look here, it's as easy as just grabbing this. We're not just going to drag and drop it, because if you do, you'll see since the displacement's all crazy, it's just going to pop and get out of control here. We just want to Control C, Control V on that to make a unique little texture here. This is going to be placed on the edge, and for this one, just go to the displacement and just lower the displacement amount here so that it's not as crazy. If you're getting any of this weird kind of clipping from the displacement on this edge, just double click in here, go to the displacement and change that to follow smooth normal instead of geometric normal, and that may fix your issue. Just depends on the displacement. Grab this, Control C, Control V, and just drag it over like that. And then we'll do it again, Control C, Control V, and we're going to rotate this. And then we'll grab the top part, Control C, Control V, and there you go. Finish off our little structure here. And from this point here, it's as easy as just picking what you want to toss in here and making it happen. So some great tips I can give you for that. Let's start off by adding this part here, the part that has the apple, kind of looks like a little battery part. So back in Cinema 4D, we're going to create another cube here. Let's drag that over towards what we're working with here. This more kind of like a extruded plane, something like that, maybe even a tiny bit more thin. So say you want to put some sort of image onto this. What we're going to do, go on Google Images and you just look up inside of iPhone. You're going to get a lot of stuff like this. Now, what I recommend you guys do is, if you want, you can click Tools, Color, put it on Transparent to find some sort of PNGs you can use, like this. So this is perfect here. Right click, save the image. You can actually just show that download in a folder and literally just drag it into Cinema 4D as a material here. Now we can drag that material onto our plane. It's going to look super stupid. Since we're using Octane, we're going to select that material in our Octane live viewer window. We're going to click Materials and we're going to convert that material. That way we can use Octane's node editor just to UV transform this. And that basically means we're transforming the image to stretch it to the place that we want it. So click node editor here. And this is very easy. Since this is an image texture, just select it and you're going to see UV transform and UV projection. So you can click both of those and it'll make two of these little nodes here, transform and a little projection node. For our projection, you can change that to something like box, and then you can use these little sliders here to transform where you want this. So this is just being projected a bunch like that. Let's lock the aspect ratio and just scale that up like that. And then we can also use this little transform X. You'll see R is rotation X, Y, Z. S is scale if you want to change the specifics. T is transform. We'll transform it like that. That's one simple technique where you can make something in 3D, pull the texture. All right, so before we go adding more detail onto this, let me just give you a troubleshooting tip. I mentioned that because we're using Octane for this, we're not going to be able to see the detail in After Effects with the link here. But if we do want to see this, what you can do is you can click into your render settings. You can just render out one frame, so current frame. Make sure you put it on Octane. Go to save and just check alpha channel, and that's really about it. All you really need to do is what I did is you'll see a test render folder. So right click, new folder, just click it and say test renders and put a name. So I'll just put test. So say we want to see what it looks like for frame number 111. We go ahead and Octane settings, and we'll do all this at the end here. Check on alpha channel, check off keep environment, and then just render it out. Simple as that. So if you want to see exactly what it's going to look like out of the render, import file and bring in the test render. So this was frame 111. So in this left side here in this little blue numbers, you'll be able to see the frame number. So 111, if you drag that in and then drag it below. So this way we can see any adjustments we may need to do. So you'll see that this needs to just be bumped up a tiny bit. So I apologize if that went fast, but like I said, once we finish the designing, we'll show you a lot more when it comes to the render settings. I just wanted to quickly do that. And if you even wanted to, you can go to your Octane settings here. You can bump this to like 20 samples, so it's going to look super grainy, and you could just render all frames just to see what the animation would look like. So I wanted to give you that information beforehand in case you do things and you end up having to change down the road. You now know how to do it. So either way, let's get back into designing the look. Again, we always want to be off of our camera view while we do this. So let's go ahead and add in our little Apple logo in the very center. Now, when it comes to adding anything, your wires, your logo, go to something like TurboSquid, CG Trader. If you literally just look up 3D Apple, if you look up 3D Apple logo free, you guys will find, you'll see TurboSquid, CG Trader, a bunch of free models which you can use, a bunch of paid models which you can look into. And of course, if you guys know anything about modeling, if it's something simple, you can just model it yourself in the software. Get my TurboSquid recent orders. You guys will see Apple logo, kit bash cables, wires, and a little graphics card here. And if you want, you can scour the internet for free ones. I just picked ones which I like the best. Try and find OBJ or FBX files, or even better, if it gives you a project file for the corresponding 3D software you're using, you can use that as well. So for example, Apple logo, here is an Apple logo OBJ. Again, this one's free, and I'll leave links to these all in the description. I'm going to save that. I'm going to extract it. I'm going to extract the files, find the OBJ here, and literally just drag this into Cinema 4D in our object panel here. So this opens up in a new project. Just select it, Control C to copy it, hold down V on your keyboard to switch your project. Just go to tutorial here, and then in our object bin, Control V to paste. So now let's find that Apple logo we pasted. If you don't like that process, you guys could always just click File, Merge Objects, and just find wherever you save the OBJ. So either way works. Pretty small compared to everything. So we click Coordinates here, and I'm going to make this 5 for everything, and that's fine for now. We're going to talk about adding the light textures, doing all the texturing, the lighting a little bit later. Right now, let's just talk about getting everything in here. So for the graphics card, again, I downloaded the FBX. I'm going to click File, Merge Objects. Let's just load in the actual OBJ geometry. Now, whenever you open something and it just has all of these objects like that, what we can do to make it a little more clean select one at the bottom, scroll up, hold down shift and click at the top so that you select them all, and then click Alt and then G to put that into a null object. So now they're all just in one null here. So easy, keeps it clean. I'm gonna double click and just name this graphics card. And let's go ahead and bring that guy over. I like to just put it up 5 for the scale. And this is coming on a plane. So we'll select the plane and delete it because we only want this part. Put that on 15 for all the scale. Click your rotation tool here. Make it face up. I think that's good to go. I'm gonna select the graphics card, null, Control C, Control V, and we'll just make a little duplication like that. And again, in terms of design, you guys can do whatever you want with this. I'm just showing you how to put things in here. So we're adding a bit more. Again, let's just add some wires here, and then we'll talk about texturing and then lighting and then rendering. So for the wires, again, I showed you, I got them all from TurboSquid, found some good ones. I like using these kit bash cables that I found on TurboSquid. So we'll load in that. Let's maybe grab this, and they're all kind of individual. So we'll hold down shift and just select all of them like that. And if you open up the wires and all, you'll see whichever ones are highlighted are the ones that we just shift clicked. So we'll Alt G those ones, and I'll name that wires 1. We'll rename this to wires all. Okay, so we showed you how to bring different objects in. It's literally just finding things on the internet or 3D modeling them yourself, merging in the FBX or the OBJ files, placing them where they need to be. And if we click into our camera target here, now you'll see everything's within our phone. We press play, everything's working fine. So design the look of it. What I want to show you real quick, real fast, is just adding a tiny bit of animation like spinning fans or something spinning in general. I think that's pretty easy to start with. And then we're going to texture, light, render. So to make this spin, you'll see these are each individual parts. If I click through here, I'm just going to hold shift and select every part of this fan here, part object up here, scroll, and remember I said anytime you shift click, those are the ones that are highlighted. So we'll Alt G into a null, and I'm going to name this one fan. Now you'll see this little button here, this auto keying. Make sure you're at the beginning of the timeline. Click auto keying, drag to the ends, grab your rotation, make sure your fan's selected, and now we can just rotate our fan. So now you'll see it's made a keyframe, and if we go to the beginning here and play it, you'll see that it is rotating. Perfect. And the center is a little bit offset, that's why it's not that good of a rotation. So there we go, I just moved my axis down and now it's just rotating a little bit better. Let's copy and paste what we just did to the other sides here. So I'm going to just select every single one of these other fans. I'm going to hold down shift and just select the pieces of all of these other fans, and I'm just going to delete them. Fan null here, Control C, Control V to paste it. And if you move it over, you'll see that the rotation may be messed up when you do that. To fix that, just make this a child of the graphics card again. Now you see it'll be fixed. And we now have 2 moving fans. You can repeat those steps for the other fans down here. Now let's design the materials and the look. And there's 3 main materials you're really gonna need. You're gonna need one glossy material, metallic material, and an emissive material. So if we pop back into our original, you'll see emissive material, which is this glowing light, is this, as well as on the wires here. Metallic material, I placed that on the blades of the fan here to give this more metal look, reflective look. And then glossy, plasticky, I placed that on the graphics card. I go to create shader cinema 4D octane material, double click, change this to glossy, and choose whatever color you want, and you're done. So that's one way to do it. Of course, you can make it more detailed. You guys can go to different sites. You guys can look up different material tutorials. Since this is literally just kind of going to be a smaller phone, I didn't make it too crazy detailed. Let's go ahead and create a little metallic one. We'll go to shader, C4D octane material again, double click, and we'll make that metallic. This site here, Quixel, I have a subscription to that. And you can even get this Quixel bridge integration, which is nice. But either way, they have this Megascan library. And if you browse that, you guys can look through different assets, different surfaces. So something like metal, plastic, whatever you want. Here you go. Just need to click here. If you log in, you can download all of the necessary parts for that. So look into that, or getting a 3-1. I'm just going to load this in. So let's first load in my roughness map. click the three dots, and it's already up here. So let's actually use this one. I have a little bit of scratchy roughness. Open it up. I'm going to say yes here. The roughness is probably the most important part of this metallic texture, but now I can apply that onto my fan. So I can shift click both of my fan nulls here, right click and select the children. So now all of these will be selected. Now I can just right click down here in my Octane material and click apply. So now that applied this metallic texture onto here, and it looks really bad right now, and that's because we have no lighting set up. So later on, once we add the lighting, you'll really get to see like the sheen of the material. You'll be able to see the scratchiness. So save that for later. Let's go ahead and just create a little texture for here. Now what you can also do is say you don't want this to just be glossy black. You don't want this to just be metal. You want like a mix of it. We can go to create shader, C4D Octane, mix material, and we can do exactly that. We can drag Octane material 2 into here, the glossy into there, and it'll make your little hybrid version. And you can use the slider to choose what you want. So that's what I did for the graphics card. Shift click them both and use that same trick. I'm going to right click, select the children, and right click my mix and apply it. So now all my graphics cards will be there. It also applied it to the fan. To fix that, just delete the mix material off of the fan here. Alright guys, so for the emissive materials, the glowing light materials, let's apply that onto the Apple logo. So I'm going to click create shader, C4D Octane material, and you can keep this one on diffuse. This is actually super easy. Just click emission, click black body emission, and then drag that onto the Apple logo. If you click on the black body emission, we can turn our power up, and now you'll see that light starting to come off of it. And now you can even take your temperature. If you put it all the way to the left, you'll have red, your orange. If you put it up, it's more cold temperatures. And the light doesn't look good. And I actually made a video all about this. The whole way to get the light looking good is to use Octane's camera settings. Now, since we already have this 3D camera tracker here, we don't need to make a new camera. What we can do is just select the 3D camera tracker we already have that we imported, right click it, go to C4D Octane tags, and apply the Octane camera tag on top of it. Now we can click the Octane camera tag, go to post-processing, check it on, and now you'll see the glow is just going to get a lot better if we change that. Looking a little bit too crazy, double click into the material and just lower down the power so you can kind of get like a good mix. Lower that a bit, and in our Octane settings here, you'll see my samples was on 16 for some reason. Let's put that up to like 300, and this will get a lot more solid. You have a better time of seeing what's going on. There we go. That's a nice glow. So easy as that. Control C, Control V your emissive material, and place that on wherever you want it, like there. And obviously this is super blown out because it's a different size. So you just go into the emission and you just kind of lower the power there. So maybe make this one sort of like orangey, like that. Here's just some time lapses of me putting a little bit more of the details together. Again, the key to this is really just taking the time to flesh out the detail, and that's what really creates a nice looking final result. Back in here, the last thing I really need to show you is the lighting, and then our render settings, and then we're good to go. I went to Objects, Lights, Cinema 4D, Area Light. If we go into our camera view, you're gonna see this ugly black square here. So we don't wanna see that. We wanna click on this Octane Light tag over here. Go to visibility and turn off camera visibility. Now this is super bright, so we'll also go. So for our light settings, let's just lower that. If you guys want, you can even add like reddish light. Now you can also apply lights which are directly inside the case. If you saw my original here, it's kind of hidden from this angle. But if we scroll to here, you'll see there's some light underneath this edge. Control C, Control V, and this so that it's facing down. So we're gonna rotate it down like that, and I made it red, so we'll click the light settings tag and we'll just turn the temperature down, and then we'll also turn down the power. Now the last thing I need to show you is we're going to click objects, we're going to add an HDRI environment, so it brings up this Octane sky, and if there wasn't any light in here, this would just be completely black. You guys can use these HDRI files to create realistic reflections onto your 3D renders. So in this scene, I'm kind of like in my backyard patio. It's very greenish, outdoorsy. So if I wanted to reflect, if I wanted to kind of recreate that, I would go to skies or nature and just try and find something that closely represents that. So we're gonna go ahead and just download the 2K version of this HDRI, and we'll show it in a folder here. And back in Cinema 4D, HDRI file into Cinema 4D and just drag it right there. So now it's going to be loading the lighting and reflections of that. And you can't really see it, so let's go ahead and just open our Octane settings, turn back on the alpha channel. So for any reason you guys don't want the different color, you only want the reflections, you can select your Octane sky tag, click on your image texture, and this type, you can change that to float, and it's going to make this all black and white, so you'll still have the reflections, but again, no color. Alternatively, you can actually just take your rotation tool here, and if I zoom out, you'll be able to see that the Octane sky can actually be rotated, so you can change the types of reflections, what's reflecting. Once you're fine with that, go back into your Octane settings, make sure your alpha channel is checked again so you don't see that in the background. If you guys need any inspiration for what to look and put in, if you just look up inside of iPhone, you guys can directly model it so it's like photorealistic to what should be there, or you can just use it as a little reference to put creative little gears in here and make your own interesting fictional iPhone look. When you are ready to render, first let's go to our settings here. So just click that gear. You want to slowly bump this up until you're getting something that's a little bit better, and you don't have to go overboard with this. I recommend you keep it around 500 to 800, 500 to 1000. It depends on the materials you're using, the lighting you're using. But if it looks clear in your render viewer, then you should be ready to go. Now, some other things, again, specular depth, glossy depth, diffuse depth. If you're getting tons of fireflies, start those all at 0 and just start bumping them up until you eventually get a clear image. Alpha channel should always be checked. Alpha keep environment should be turned off so that there's nothing messing up the background. If you guys are getting kind of grainy renders, you can turn on adaptive sampling. So that's a little side option, but in reality, this isn't really too taxing on your graphics card, so you guys should be good. If you want, you can even put it on path tracing and maybe make it like 1000 samples and you get super smooth renders. Once you have done that, you can click your render settings, and again, make sure that this is set to Octane renderer, or you're going to export out whatever's here. For our output, the great thing about using that Cinema 4D After Effects link is all the width height things, frames are already set for you. Just change your frame range to all frames if you want to render out the full animation. In terms of save, make sure your alpha channel is checked so that you're rendering this out transparent in the background. Designate a folder to save this, so you can just overwrite your renders in your test renders here, or you can just make a new folder, save it, and then you're ready to click this button and fire away the renderer. All right, back in our main comp here, you should be at this screen. Again, if you have your little C4D test thing underneath going on, you can just check that off because we're going to now import our files. So to import the files, which we just rendered from C4D, right click in your project bin here, go to import multiple files, find the folder where you saved all those images. Here, what it should look like once it's rendered out, just a bunch of images here. Select the very first frame, make sure TIFF sequence is checked, make sure you're importing as footage, click import, click OK, and then click done. Now you can drag that little TIFF sequence into here, and specifically you want to drag this underneath your alpha invert trick we did earlier, so it looks like it's underneath. And there you go. Another thing I want to mention, sometimes this clip here will be at 30 frames instead of whatever frame rate you specified, even though you are doing that export trick. If you just see in the project bin, frame rate, this is 30, everything else is 23.96. Easy fix for that, right click, interpret footage, main, and just make it whatever it should have been. So 23.976. Okay, extend it out and enjoy what you have created. Everything should be looking good. Pretty cool rotation on the fans. Now, you guys can apply any color grading, contrast, effects onto here. Go to my main comp and we just click on the effect controls. I just added a glow over top here. So I used a Sapphire third-party plugin glow, but you can just look up the normal glow and you'll see just a tiny little before and after if you apply the glow. So I hope you did enjoy. If you're new to 3D, again, it's really not that difficult. Just follow along with the tutorial. It's a great way to learn some really cool stuff. I've really been into mixing 3D with real life, so I've been having a lot of fun trying to recreate things like that. So thank you guys for suggesting. Shout out to 𝐿 again for the original idea of creating something with this sort of look. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you guys in the next one.